I just got done playing Exocross on stream today, and we're here to talk about it. Before we get started, welcome on in. My name is Jam. I'm a streamer here on YouTube and on Twitch. We play a lot of racing type games, driving games, along with other variety types of content on both here on YouTube and on Twitch. So if you like any of that stuff, hit the subscribe button on here or go follow me on Twitch. And with that, let's get started. Exocross is wild. First of all, it's a really fun game. I'm actually having a great time playing it, whether or not I'm playing it on controller or on the wheel. We're going to talk about the wheel thing in a little bit. First of all, what the heck is Exocross? If you've been on the internet for a little while, especially in the realm of sim racing or racing games in general, you would probably look at this game and you're like, it's familiar, it looks familiar, I think I've seen this before. And you might be right. It's because this game is basically the game Drag. That was in early access for a little while actually, then scooped up and bought by iRacing, and they continued the production and the development of it under the iRacing company. So that's the reason why if you go to the Steam page, you'll see the developer page as published and developed by iRacing, because they're not distributing it. They actually ended up buying and taking over the Drag IP. So what the heck even is Exocross? It's a futuristic off-road racing game. It is now available on PC and PS as of recording. It should be coming out on Xbox as well. I've heard through the grapevine that due to the whole CrowdStrike thing that happened like last week, the whole Microsoft deployment got a little delayed. But regardless, it'll show up on Microsoft, PlayStation, and PC via Steam. The game is about $40 US, but in Canada, I think it's like $51.99 for me. But yeah, so that's kind of the primer. As far as the game goes, there is a bit of a lore, or the universe of the game kind of takes place in something similar to ours, but things kind of went a little different when global warming is kind of becoming a big deal. The world decided to not drive cars anymore, and personal transportation has stopped being a thing. A lot of the enthusiasts, people like us in that world, are now just relegated to driving in simulators, because that's kind of all we get. The sim racers in that universe kind of fell off in terms of like how immersive sim racing is versus the real stuff. So what they decided was to colonize another planet, send cars to that said planet, and then have people on Earth control those cars on that planet, thereby polluting that planet instead of ours. That's how it works. So basically, as a player in the real world controlling another dude in the in-game universe, controlling another car in a different planet in that same universe. Got that? Alright, cool. Now, let's talk about the game. The game itself is really fun. The physics felt really great. The haptics on a controller felt really good. And it actually kind of felt pretty much polished in terms of like how the driving is out of the box. There are a lot of things that are missing though, we're going to talk about in a second, but for now let's talk about the good bits, right? Graphics look pretty good. I got a stable 144 FPS in the game with my stuff. I don't have a high-end setup, but it was fine. So for me, very enjoyable. I had a great time. The physics is great. When you hit things on the track, it doesn't reset on the next lap. On the next lap, it's still there. So if you run through a stack of tires, which unfortunately I did a lot of, when you go over that, it's still there. When you hit your car into something and your wheel pops off, which is happening quite often, your wheel will be rolling down, and then if you hit the reset switch and your car gets reset, your car is still, when you look forward, your tire is still rolling. So that's kind of where the physics of the world, and it's persistent. It's great. You get like a pretty good amount of AI opponents to play with. There's actually online matchmaking as well. However, during the time of recording, it wasn't really working that too well, so I opted out not to play it as much. But the in-game, the championships and the time trials and the challenges are already in place for you to play. As far as driving it with a wheel though, I was successful in playing it on my Moza setup. As a primer, what I have on my setup right now is we got the Moza R9 wheelbase. You can see it right there. We got the SRP pedals with the clutch, the Moza handbrake, Those are the only ones that are kind of useful in the game. I have a Simjack Sequential and a Thrustmaster H pattern, neither of which are really being used in the game at the moment. So you either play with a controller or you can play it with the wheel. Surprisingly, it worked pretty well. I was able to map the buttons. I think I set it up at 900 degrees of rotation and it worked pretty well. I even set it up at 540. It worked pretty well as well. Force feedback was working too. However, there is no settings for force feedback in the game. And this will actually come as a common theme in a little bit. A lot of the settings is just everywhere. A lot of the settings are missing. A lot of the places where you would typically find settings is missing. Tooltips, not existent. Tutorials, non-existent. You know, when you start playing a new game, especially more commonly on racing titles, when you're like driving, especially like games like Forza Horizon, where it's like a arcade style driving game, which is what Exocross is. You typically would have like tooltips popping up on screen, like, okay, right trigger on the controller is accelerator, X or A on the controller is boost, brake would be the left trigger, and so on and so on and so on. Changing view would be this button and so on. That's not a thing, not existent at all. So when I was playing, I didn't even know that boost was a thing for the first hour. Because I started going and I was assuming that there was something that's coming up on screen, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just standard driving, so throttle and brake, right? That's kind of all you think about. Yeah, but technically boost was there. I didn't ever know that. It was never mentioned in any sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that are missing. You do get a lot of, you know, video lore dumps, if you could call it, in between championships here and there. You get access to about 6 championships, 3 cars, 4 locations, 19 tracks total. I think that you'll start noticing that the theme about this game is there's a lot of things that are missing. It's fun. If it was $20, hell yeah, I'll buy it. If it was $20, it was $25, $15 even, US dollars, by the way, then I'll buy it. And have fun with it, especially with multiplayer. If they finally get that thing working, playing with your buddies in a track, kind of messing about, tossing your cars around, hitting trees and whatnot. Great time. I enjoyed driving it. I had a great time driving it with the wheel. Enjoyed the physics of it. Like, you can get the car to step out really easily, especially if you get the higher end car. So there's 3 cars that you get in the game, varying performance levels, but also varying like torque split. Some of these cars would have different characteristics, and that's where I think the iRacing kind of influence comes in. I also have a feeling that the iRacing influence came in very handy when setting up wheel support and pedal support and all that, because it took that easily. I didn't even need to do anything. I didn't even think about having to figure out drivers, or do I need to do a firmware update on my wheelbase, or do I need to virtualize it using VJoy? None of that. It just took it. So driving wise is great. It was a fun time getting especially when you get the back of the car to step out. It's such a great time. Counter steering. It's, as I mentioned, there's 3 cars that are available. You have 3 different values of power, horsepower and torque. Also 3 different like torque splits. Like your first car is 51 to the rear, 49 to the front, 60-40, and then the other one is 65-35, which kind of gives you a little more drifty boy action when you get on the higher cars, because they put more horsepower. You get a V10 on the very end. On the very top end, and when you slam the throttle pretty hard, especially on the snowy areas or the dirt areas, the back end will come out. I kind of did some rough math, right? So let's say, for example, you have 4. Let's just say you're like me and you're kind of a sucky driver. 4 minutes per stage, for example. You have 4, give or take, 4 stages per championship. Actually, there's more, so we're gonna overestimate at the very end. So let's just say, for rough math, 4 minutes per championship. So that's 16 minutes of driving. There are 6 total championships. And if you add all of that up, I think that roughly amounts to an hour and a half worth of time. And let's say again, you're like me, you have to reset a few times and whatever. So let's say 3 hours. Best case, you had to reset every single race twice. You only have 3 hours worth of actual championship stuff to do. After that, it's time trials and challenges, which are like time trial challenges that the game gives you. That is all. For $40, I don't think that's worth it. That's why I think that it being outside of early access, which by the way, Drag was in early access for a little while. It got out of early access after Exocross. It became Exocross. I will say though, on the plus side, if you are an owner of the original Outer Worlds game, Drag Outer Worlds, which was an early access, you get automatically upgraded to Exocross, so you don't have to buy it. So that's good. Good guy iRacing for doing that. But if you're a vanilla user like myself who's going to be buying the game, or who's bought the game, I don't really think it's worth the money at this time. I would say if they add more stages, they add more locations, they add more cars, then I think overall it'll be worth it. I was playing on medium AI for the most part of today's stream, and just so I can get an idea of how it scales and whatnot. Once I get past them in the medium difficulty, meaning I went from 8th place to 1st and stayed there, fine. The problem with the AI is they're aggressive as hell. So when you are in the process of getting from 8th place to 1st and you're trying to pass everybody, you get too close to their front wheel, they're going to pit maneuver you. Or you get too close to their backside, they're going to brake check you. Yeah. It happens. I think it's fine. I'm gonna chalk that up to me being unskilled enough to handle them. But that's AI. You know, if you want to play it that way. And then, you know, but even given that, I still enjoy the game. But again, will I buy it for $50 Canadian or $40 US? Probably not. And I think that will be the end of this. I'm not gonna add too much more to the story here because a lot of people have already talked about this game. I will say 100%. It works with Moza wheels. So if you are watching and you have a Moza wheel or looking to get the Moza wheel, I can tell you right now, it'll work. There is also the issue of just the settings menu, the overall UX of the game. I don't think they thought about it well enough, I guess is the best way of saying it. So the championship difficulty settings is hidden in the game settings, which you would imagine typically should be better found inside the championship menu. That's one. The other one is on the video settings. I can change my game to go full screen, to go windowed mode, or borderless windowed. Any game, it's 2024. Games should have that because I have a 621x9 monitor and I came from the software world and I like to break things. I like to QA things the way I would like it to do. I want to test things, see if I can crash it, see if I can make it work, whatever. So what I typically would want to do is to force it to 16:9 so I can see how it looks on 16:9, whether or not the assets get all dragged out or everything gets stretched apart, whatever the case may be. I wanted to do that. I can't. I can't even enable VSync. It's actually permanently enabled. I can't turn it off. At least from what I can tell, because my FPS was pegged at 144 and my monitor's refresh rate was 144, and I'm pretty sure I can squeeze more FPS for that game, and I tried even lowering the details of the game, and it was hard stuck at 144. So I can tell you with probably 85% certainty that the VSync is permanently on and you can't turn the damn thing off. The control mapping scheme, also really weird. And again, I'm looking at this as a game that's brand new, being sold in 2024. You know that I've already mapped a wheel to it, but when I go to controls, you still show me the Xbox controller. Granted, it was connected at the time, but then for me to access my wheel controls, I have to open the control menu and then go to advanced. Like, this is nitpicking now for sure, and you can yell at me all you want in the comments about being very nitpicky about UX. I don't think that's something that you should expect in a game that releases today. The UX reminds me of, I shit you not, Need for Speed Underground. The menu system looks very old school. It's missing a lot of key things. As something that is now 1.0 and no longer early access, I don't think that checks out. I will probably still play it. I'll probably still put it on stream. But I'm hoping that more content comes down the pipe and more cars come down the pipe. And even, man, tool tips. a lot of new players, especially in the genre that you're trying to get into, which is, you know, futuristic off-road arcade racing games, most people don't understand what to do. Also, helpful tooltips on assists would be nice. What happens if I turn off ABS? What happens if I turn off stability control? What happens if I turn off steering assist? Stuff like that. Useful stuff that for people who are not well versed in the racing game world should know. Alright, I think that wraps it up for us today. If you like that, please like the video. If you didn't like it, fine. Dislike it. Let me know if you don't like it. Write a comment down below if you're gonna buy it, or if you're thinking of buying it, or have I just stopped you from buying it. And you know, subscribe for more stuff, because we'll be streaming on this channel and on Twitch, usually at the same time. Typically we're doing a lot of WRC these days, but we're gonna be playing games like this. We're gonna be playing some Forza Horizon on stream at some point. So if you like that kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel or follow me on Twitch. And I think with that, I'll see you guys next time, and have yourself a good day. Goodbye.